On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and it's a day after my birthday, so did I have a birthday hangover? Nah, I didn't do anything. I'm too old for that. 42. Had a nice, just hanging out at home with the fam. But as we jump into the show today, we're gonna dive heavy into some football talk. Why? Because that's what the world's talking about. I didn't start this, but I feel like now it's becoming a trend. I don't know if there's an algorithm that finds you, but as I bring Sam Ekstrom in, and Sam's going to join the show, my producer. For those who haven't seen it, I tweeted out a video. Now, Kyle Brandt says that Kirk Cousins can possibly be the NFL MVP. Not my words, his. So if you have a problem, go tweet to Kyle Brandt. Shannon Sharp, that was not me, bro. That was the video I put out there. But dark horse MVP, I like that. We're of course gonna get into the daily three, and today we have a new game. We have no guest today, so we have a new game. So when you go back and you podcast this or you're watching it, make sure you watch it all because we have a new game today. Keep them or cut them. I mean, it's time to start formulating this 53-man roster. A little bit early, but it's never too early to pick a team that's going to be your 2022-2023 Minnesota Vikings. But one of the questions you posed to me, and then I'll kick it over to you. What rookie or what player can step onto a stage and become, quote unquote, a Pro Bowler? I don't really know if there is one. That's my problem when I look at so many new guys. Could go cornerback with Andrew Booth Jr. You can go a number of different directions. You could say Scene at safety, but then you have Harrison Smith. And we know when it comes to certain positions like that, it's a popularity contest. Just because you're a rookie, have a great season, you have to be popular as well. Justin Jefferson was popular. Yes, he had a great season. He grittied that thing out, but he was popular. That's why he got it on and popping and got to go to the Pro Bowl. I think this could be a year for Adam Thielen to get back in the hierarchy of receivers and end up back in the Pro Bowl. I think this is a resurgence year for Adam Thielen when you look at Kirk Cousins and the number of passes he's going to have in this offense. I'm going a different route. I think Adam Thielen, because so many people were saying, is he done? The injury, blah, blah. Like, I think this is a resurgence year for him. I think this is a year where you can see two Vikings receivers like Chris Carter and Randy Moss ended up in the Pro Bowl, and that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I think that Thielen is almost at the point where he might be year to year, where if he doesn't have a good year, we're going to wonder about his status every offseason because he is worth a lot of money. And if he's not effective, then this team probably would want to either get that contract down or move on. So it's weird to say for sort of a Vikings stalwart in Thielen, local guy, but he is kind of in a prove-it year. And he does have to have a resurgence, I think, to keep making the same amount of money. Now, if we're looking for someone to break out for the first time, we haven't seen it yet, and we're waiting for it. I think that Irv Smith is by far the number one candidate. I mean, I think that he's sitting on a big year. It might have been last year had he not been hurt. And I think this year he's primed for it as one of the only real pass-catching threats at tight end for this team. They didn't add a whole lot of competition for him at wide receiver. I mean, I think they're going to throw the ball more. I think that he's a gigantic breakout candidate. I think about Christian Darrisaw on that offensive line. I think he showed the tools to be an excellent left tackle last year. And I think that he and O'Neal could be bookends for the next 5, 6, 7 years. If Darrisaw turns into the player I think he's going to. Defensively, what about Cam Dantzler, Ron? Is Cam Dantzler sitting on a big year? Because we've seen flashes where he'll go 4 games, 5 games, and he'll be one of the best defensive players on the team. But then we'll see injuries, we'll see late game breakdowns, just lack of consistency, mental mistakes. Does it all come together for him in year 3? I think he could be a sneaky defensive player. And again, he's going to have to compete with a Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth Jr. Will that sharpen his game to have to compete in training camp, win that job, and put him on maybe a big year?
Yeah, and so this what I'd say about Cam Dantzler. Again, at cornerback, it's a popularity contest. Big year for him. He'd have to have and Tony Dungy always jokes about this with my dad. Tony Dungy had more interceptions one year than my dad did when they were the Steelers, and I think that was the 79 Super Bowl year, if I'm not mistaken. Or possibly, I don't know if it was my dad's rookie year. I think it was the 79 Super Bowl year or 78. But one of those two, Tony Dungy always tells that story when he does his Arise with the Guys thing about that people don't realize how he led the team in interceptions. When you look at Mel Blount, Donnie Shell, my dad, Wagner, and then you have Tony Dungy. And so you would just assume like, yeah, it wasn't Tony Dungy when you look at all those, Hall of Fame names. But it was Tony Dungy that year at safety, came in big spots and made big plays. But this is what I'll say about Irv Smith. I could see him having a resurgent or a breakout year. I think with the only tight end in this passing game, there's going to be a lot of under routes, a lot of deep over routes, and a lot of like sit routes where the tight end sits in the middle and you send one guy deep and one guy crosses his face, because we saw that with OBJ and the Rams and their tight end kind of similar. It's going to be the quarterback's choice, dealer's choice. But this is the tight ends I look at. The problem, again, going back to this is a popularity contest with Pro Bowl. When you say the word Pro Bowl, you got Darren Waller with the Vegas Raiders. You got George Kittle, and these are all NFC tight ends because AFC doesn't matter. Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts with Atlanta, Zach Ertz with Arizona. And then you even got TJ Hawkinson in Detroit.
Yeah.
So with the NFC, it's loaded. I'd even say Noah Fant with Seattle, but they don't really have a quarterback. So, that's going to be the question mark. Tyler Higbee with the Rams, I don't think he did anything. And this is just kind of that's that list. That's the projected fantasy guys for tight ends for 2022. Travis Kelce, of course, leads the way. Mark Andrews, but those are two AFC guys. Those are going to be your top two, projected right now as far as AFC tight ends, and then NFC tight ends. The top two are Darren Waller and George Kittle. I think those are the odds-on favorites of going to the Pro Bowl as well. Like that's, again, those are names, those are guys that get force-fed the ball. But Darren Waller is an interesting one because now they have Devontae Adams. So how does that look now for Derek Carr? Darren Waller, we know, was his outlet. That was his, that was his guy he was coming to. I had him one year in fantasy. I loved it. He gave me, he was getting 10, 11 catches some games. Late in games, he stays in the game, and he's going to continue to get passes, whether that's padding the stats or not. Who cares? But that's what I'd say. I go back to, out of that group, Irv Smith Jr., Christian Darrisaw, and Cam Dantzler. I'm going to go Darrisaw in that group because as far as offensive tackles go, this is the key for Darrisaw. If Dalvin Cook has a huge year on the ground and in the air, if Kirk Cousins has a big year passing, stays clean, blind sides protected, and then Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen also benefit from the blocking of Darrisaw, then I could see Darrisaw becoming that, because then people are going to start to grade out this offensive line. Brian O'Neill on the other side, I think, is going to be extremely solid. Normally the left tackle gets all the praise. And then you look at the left tackles now. A lot of these guys, the Trent from the 49ers, a lot of these guys are getting old. Yeah, a lot of these guys are getting old now. So now it is time for a new young guy. And I think you might have hit that one. Christian Darrisaw could be the guy. Irv is going to have a tough uphill battle with tight ends as far as competing against. But no, I think Darrisaw, the way this offense is loaded, if he does well and they do well, his name could be up in there. Mm-hmm. But coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show, we're going to debut a new segment. We're going to cut them, keep them, sit them. Like which guy's going to make the team? Which guy's going to be on the street looking for a new home? Then that's up next on the Ron Johnson Show. And then, of course, in segment 3, we're going to have the Daily 3. Stick around for that. If you enjoy the Ron Johnson Show, you'll enjoy our other daily show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's Superior Sports Talk with KARL-11 Sports Director Reggie Wilson and co-host Luke Inman. Whether it's Twins, Vikings, Wolves, or Wild, Reggie and Luke cover it all with all the breaking news and big-time opinions. Catch the show 5 days a week by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Now it's time for our new segment, Keep 'em or Cut 'em. We're going to name off some players. Sam's going to name off some players for me, and I'm going to make the decision. If I'm the GM, if I'm Kwesi, put my Kwesi hat on, am I going to keep this guy on my roster or am I going to cut him? And let me be frank before we get into this, and let's bring Sam in for this one. Let me be frank. Cutting them does not mean I don't think they're a good athlete or a good fit for this team. It just means that there are so many other pieces to this 53-man puzzle that they are not going to make the team. So don't take it as if this guy is just bad. Now, if they are bad, I'm not afraid to say it, but keep them or cut them. Take it away, Sam.
All right, good disclaimer. I've got 4 names for you. We'll see if we get to them all. I'm going to start you off with a forgotten about player who in 2019 was a really important piece of that offense. B.C. Johnson got replaced by Justin Jefferson in 2020, injured in 2021, 1 year left on his deal, Ron. Keep him or cut him.
Yeah, BC Johnson for me, I do like this kid. Here's the caveat about this. So BC Johnson having the same last name as me, he and I crossed paths a lot during COVID because the way the COVID schedule was set up, you went alphabetically. So it was always BC in front of me and then me. And so after like the third time, we kind of figured that out. Like, hey, man, what's going on? Blah, blah, And so as we're, because hey, here's your time. You have to show up to get your COVID test because we don't want too many people in the trailer. So as BC and I would weekly kind of run into each other on Mondays, this was always the big talkers. Like, dude, what happened in the game? What this? The one I'll never forget was the Colts game. And for those that remember the Colts game, that was the bad game Kirk Cousins had with interceptions. Now, two of them, I think weren't, or no, one of them wasn't his fault. One was just trying to make something happen at the end of the half, if I'm not mistaken. But the BC Johnson one, he was running a slant versus cover 2. The problem with what he did was he throttled down and he slowed down, assuming the safety was there and the corner had set back. Well, they looked like they were in the 2 shell and they shifted. Long story short, Kirk Cousins throws as if BC's going to keep coming across his face. BC kind of throttles down, seeing man or zone, or seeing zone. I would have to go back and actually see what it was too, because you don't go with the corner, you go with the safety. So if it's too high, it's zone for the receiver. If it's 1 high, it's man, and you keep going. Because if it's 2, then the linebacker's there, you're going to get your head knocked off. I do remember there was a guy and there was a window, so I can understand BC's hesitation. There was another one like on 3rd and something against, I think, Jacksonville, maybe, or somebody else, where he slowed down. And this was, I think, Thielen had got hurt. Slows down, kind of pity pat, same thing, hits off his arm instead of running through, letting it catch in his body. Those 2 plays for me stood out because literally after that, he was taking out the game. And after the Colts game, for instance, like you said, we never saw BC again. Those mistakes happen. Justin Jefferson just happened to come in and do well. But for BC Johnson, if you look at KJ Osborne, you look at Adam Thielen, you look at Justin Jefferson, those 3 are locks. Amir Smith-Marset played last year, but I think BC is probably a better overall receiver. I think Smith-Marset gives you a lot on special teams, but BC can learn it. I'm going to keep BC on this roster, though. I think he can be that 5th, 6th receiver. With this passing game, they're going to go deep. Think about how many receivers the Rams bought in the game during the Super Bowl and the playoffs. I think they're going to go heavy receiver this year, smaller on like maybe the running back tight end side.
Yeah, so in my mind, they're keeping 6. Probably not 7. That's too many.
No,
5 is too little. And it is a numbers game. Thielen, Jefferson, Osborne, locks. I think that Amir Smith-Marset, because he's only a 2nd-year receiver, I think you got to play it out for at least 1 more year. I think he has to make the team in my mind. Then you've got the sneaky rookie, Jalen Naylor. Like, what do you do with him? I think a lot of times you like to keep these rookie guys, but it's not a guarantee. So he's going to be competing with BC. Dan Chisena, where does he fit in all this? I have been on board with not keeping Chisena because he doesn't offer you much as a receiver. So I'm okay if they cut ties there. So I think he's vying for that 5th and 6th spot with Naylor and with Smith-Marset and Blake Prohl too. Remember, he got hurt during camp last year, but he was having a good camp. So I think he's in the mix, firmly in the mix to be kind of one of those depth guys. And he's obviously got to offer you something on special teams too.
Yeah, Dan Chisena's speed. Yeah. I think that's the key to keep an eye on. But no, I think you keep BC.
I've got another one for you on defense. A cornerback who we've heard a little bit from here and there due to injuries, but Harrison Hand. I got to check. Is this year 3 or 4 for Hand? I think it's 3. I think it's his 3rd year on the team. You drafted a couple corners this year. Is there room for Harrison Hand on this roster?
Well, for Harrison Hand, experience out of Temple, they give him 3 years. So this is then coming up on his 4th year.
It is,
and this is where he stands. So when you look at Harrison Hand, I think he was suitable for the moment, meaning, like you said, guys were getting hurt, he was coming out. Now, this is going to be the problem. In the past, it was a cornerback heavy team. But in the 3-4 defense, it changes a little bit because you need more tweener backers because you're now going 4 backers versus 3. And so you're going to have to decide between backers, DNs, D tackles, corners, safeties. Which one do you need more of? What can you get away with? I think Brian Asamoah adds a ton of, like, the coaches all like love his speed, his play already. I think that adds a nickel guy at 225 pounds. He's about the size of a safety. He can come in and play nickel safety because Cam Bynum can play cornerback. And so I think that's going to be tough for Harrison Hand because now when you look at the way this defense plays out, it's not going to be a true cover 2 shell 4-3 defense. You're going to have some odd looks. You're going to have some move guys. When you're looking at corners, I know Chris Boyd has struggled. So I think Chris Boyd, Harrison Hand, those two, that's going to be the deciding factor. Again, this is an all new group. So don't think the guys that have been here are locks. I think Andrew Booth Jr., we know he's good. Cam Dantzler is good. Caleb Evans is good. That's 3. Then you go down to Patrick Peterson. I think he's good. That's 4. You go Chandon Sullivan. That's 5. You're at 5 cornerbacks already. Now you go to safety. Cam Bynum's good. That's 6. Lewis Cine, Harrison Smith. That's now 8. So we're at 8 DBs, and we only have 3 safeties. So now I need a 9th safety, as that's my thought. Now, I could be wrong. They might go heavy corner and say Brian Asamoah can be a weird nickel type of guy to come in the box and cover. And I met him, and I talked to him face-to-face, and he said that. Like, yeah, I can come down and cover. But you got to look at Josh Metellus, and you got to look at Miles Dorn. So you got those guys as well, and then Mike Brown. So they bought in some guys that are going to fight for this safety spot. So, because I don't think you can go with 3 safeties. You got to go at 4. So I think you're going to put it at 6 corners, 4 safeties, which leaves Harrison Hand kind of out. That's just my thought. So I'm cutting Harrison Hand.
Yeah, I get the feeling they will too. They're 5 are locks at corner. If they're keeping 6, then you got a big competition. You got Ty Smith, Perry Nickerson, Chris Boyd, who's played a lot more than Hand in his career, not always effectively. I think it could come down to Boyd versus Hand to see who gets that spot, and I would probably cut Harrison Hand as well. Yeah. Here's another one for you, Ron. Kenny Willekes, 2nd year, check that, 3rd year, defensive end, hurt 1 year, came back the next, and it was actually pretty effective last year. So does Kenny Willekes have a spot on this defensive line?
That's when I saw that come up, I was a little bit like, I'm thrown off by that one because, again, the 3-4 to me it's new. I mean, I know exactly what a 4-3 is. The 3-4 is new as far as me deep diving. I haven't deep dived it yet, but when you look at James Lynch, you look at Harrison Phillips, you look at Kenny Willekes, you look at Janoris Robinson, who's coming back at DN. You look at Asezi, who can play the 5 technique and the 3, he said, as well as the wide 7 and stand up. I'm gonna. That's a tough one, though, man. That is really hard. Like, for the sake of this, I'm just gonna cut them. I'm gonna say you cut them for this one, and then you probably maybe bring them back because now this new. I don't know how the practice squad works because it's so weird nowadays. But because I think if you haven't spent 2 years on it, no matter what year you are, you can be on it. So I'm going to say probably cut, but then put them on the practice squad to see, and then see how these other guys that have been here, these veterans, if it pans out, if you need to get them in for some energy, switch it up. But no, I'm going to cut them for the sake of that.
Yeah, honestly, your practice squad guys these days are basically on your roster. You get to call up the 2 extra ones on game day. You get guys filling in for COVID reasons. You no longer have to submit them to waivers for the first 2 times. I mean, you're constantly cycling through those practice squad guys that you can easily, I think, sneak them through to that. The numbers aren't favorable to Willekes because I think you have to keep Patrick Jones, Janarius Robinson, Odamewo, DJ Wan. Like, there's probably 6 defensive linemen that you have to keep automatically at that edge or outside position. So I don't feel great about Willekes' chances. Right. One more, real quickly. Troy Dye, 3rd-year linebacker. Could he be a fit in this 3-4?
Yes, I think he can. Simply for the fact of the 3-4, you do need athletic guys that can move around. Now, what he did at Oregon was awesome. Like if you watch him at Oregon, athletically gifted. This is coming up on his third year, which man, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But yeah, coming up on his third year, hasn't done much in those two. Has had some bright spots here and there. Made some plays. I would love to see him put some gloves on and some wristbands because that no glove, no tape, no nothing, just bare arms. Looks like a Madden creative
Looks
player
like
that
a
you didn't have
long
enough.
snapper.
Yeah, every time I swear I thought it was the long snapper, but just doesn't looks like a creative player you didn't have enough money to add gloves and wristbands to. Like just swag it out a little bit, but that's I don't know. That's just because it's weird seeing a guy from Oregon not with all the swag, like not with every like. It's just like, man, like he did not fit the mode of what Oregon is about, which is throw everything in the locker on and let's go out there and play some football. But again, when I go to the linebackers in this 3-4, I think there's room for more. Plus special teams, you're gonna see a lot of linebackers on special teams. Brian Asamoah, he's in there. Jordan Hicks is in there. Eric Kendricks is in there. And then I think Blake Lynch is in there. You guys, za'darius Smith as well. The one, and we'll talk about this at some point, but Chaz Surratt for me is the question mark. That's why I think Troy Dye gets in because he's done more than Chaz Surratt. And Chaz Surratt originally was supposed to be that athletic guy they wanted, but in the 4-3, he didn't work. Maybe in this 3-4 as a rush guy, as an athletic guy that can move around. Maybe they find a spot for him on this, if they have some packages. But again, I don't see it happening just because there's so many stars. When you talk about names like Danielle Hunter, za'darius Smith, I mean, Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks, those stars are going to get 90% to 95%. Their goal is 90% of the snaps. So I just don't see a lot of room for extras. I think Brian Asamoah fits in as that fifth linebacker in that grouping that's going to come in packages, especially when they need to spy the quarterback and do some other stuff. Troy Dye, same thing. I think he's athletic enough to give you some spy quarterback stuff. When you think about Josh Allen, you think about Kyler Murray, quarterbacks that could give you fits, Dak Prescott, guys that get out of the pocket and everybody in the stadium screaming like, why isn't nobody paying attention to the quarterback? Well, we have linebackers that can now, and I think Troy Dye and Brian Asamoah are two great pieces for that. Without to do it, for keep them or cut them. Love the segment, Sam. I like that. We're going to have to do that throughout training camp for sure because I know everybody wants to know what we're thinking. And then, of course, let us know what you're thinking. Make sure you download us on your podcast network. You can go to iHeartMedia's podcast network. You can go to Apple, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, and you can find the Ron Johnson Show and all their clips. But up next, the Daily 3, and we'll be back after that. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show, the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes. Take it away, Sam.
You got it. The Minnesota Twins are still rolling. They're playing your Detroit Tigers, who are not putting up a huge fight. But last night, they were pretty scrappy, actually. They came back from a 4-0 deficit, tied the game at 4, only for the Twins to walk them off in the 9th on an RBI ground out to shortstop. In and out of the shortstop's glove. Twins get the winning run, win 5-4. So here's the record, Ron. 26-16, 10 games over 500. Next 11 games are all against the Tigers and the Royals. So after these 11, what is the record going to be?
After these 11, so I'm going to just go with the Tigers first. I said the Tigers would be 4-1. That's what I said. I said this 5-game series going to be 4-1. That could have been the one last night. I think this gives them momentum into this 4. Like I said, 4-1. I think the Tigers will get 1 because it's just a lot. Baseball is not a game. It's hard to sweep. I mean, you can do it in 3, but it's tough. Teams figure each other out. Pitchers are hard to, have a whole pitching staff for an entire series. Just be lights out. There's always a hiccup. But right now, the Twins are showing the bats. I think that's the key. No matter how scrappy a team is, their bats are still working. They're still smart on the base path, and they're aggressive when there's mistakes that are made. I was in Detroit last summer for the Twins-Tigers game. I think the Twins won that one. They did like the international rules because it was like either a doubleheader or a makeup game. I can't remember what happened, but I know they put a guy at second. Tigers made a mistake then. I think they dropped like a simple infield pop fly. Nobody could figure out where it was at. Twins win. So when you look at this, I think over this 11, for sure the Tigers 4-1. And then, I mean, I say the next 11, it's bullish, but I think they go 8-3. Like this AL Central is really just handing it over to them. It's not even halfway through the season, so I am scared to really jump on this train, but I think they can go 8-3 over this next one. But the biggest key is like PJ Fleck always says, and every coach would always say this, one game at a time. The next game is the Detroit Tigers. This is the 0-1 or the 0-0 Detroit Tigers championship game. They got to take the next game as it comes and then not to look too far ahead, because now everybody's saying like, oh man, they're in the playoffs. So, who are they going to play? Is it the Yankees in the first play-in? Is it, let's hold on, people. They can do it, but 8-3 in the next 11 is my opinion.
And that would put them at 34-19. Not a bad record. All right. The Detroit Lions are scheduled to be the preseason Hard Knocks team on HBO. Love watching Hard Knocks. But last year, remember, they introduced in-season Hard Knocks. And this year, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. So, Ron, which Hard Knocks team is more compelling to you? The Detroit Lions or the Arizona Cardinals?
The Lions. I mean, it's the Lions, and simple for the fact that everybody said how they sucked. And so now you're going to get to see Dan Campbell really put his team together and what he says. You're going to see the hard-nosed Aiden Hutchinson. Everybody said he looks like a dollar value. What's his name? Bosa. He has that 97 on. He looks like one of the Bosa brothers, but like a generic version of him. When you think about what they do and what the Lions do and how, they want to show the city off and how blue collar it really is, some of the community stuff they're going to do. I think I'm compelled to see this. I'm compelled to, and one, because the Vikings, they have to play them twice, but I'm compelled to see, do the players like really take to what he's doing? Does that, yell, rah, 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 does that really happen? And does that really get the players going? Like, are they on board for what Dan Campbell's trying to get out of them? The Arizona Cardinals in season, we'll see. I think some of the turmoil with Kyler Murray this preseason, wiping all the Cardinal stuff from his Instagram account, didn't know if he was going to be a Cardinal, wasn't happy. Now they bring in Brown at receiver. You got DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be suspended, and then he's going to be back for week 7 or 8 or whatever, depending on how that goes. So there's a little bit of intrigue there to like, is Kyler Murray the guy? And then everybody, I put Kirk Cousins above Kyler Murray. So again, I am kind of want to see that. Like, what does Kyler Murray do? Is he a leader? Does he really seem better? Or is Kirk Cousins going to step his voice up and all of a sudden become this guy this year because Kevin O'Connell's giving him a voice and saying, hey, the mic's yours. Lead this team. Get some swag about it, but lead the team. But no, I want to see the Lions. I want to see what happens in training camp. I want to see, Aiden Hutchinson, can he change the mindset of this defense with, like I said, sometimes it takes a guy. It takes a guy to really get nasty and gritty and get the rest of the team to follow. Is he that guy? So I want to see.
My 2 cents on this is that there's a lot of pressure on Arizona this year. There's not as much pressure on Detroit. They're not really expected to win. Arizona needs to win for Cliff Kingsbury's sake, for Kyler Murray's sake. So if they're going to be followed in season on HBO, and if things are crumbling, I think that could get very interesting. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Arizona on this one. All right. This is the topic that has, taken over your Twitter for the past 4 days. Now the NFL Network has picked up on it, probably because they saw Shannon Sharp tweeting at you.
Correct.
They post a video. Kyle Brandt claims that Kirk Cousins is an MVP candidate. I mean, that's music to your ears, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah, he called him a dark horse. And we all know dark horses can come and win. Look at the Kentucky Derby. Hey, dark horses can win. It only takes a simple glimpse of hope, a simple like light to say, hey, there's light at the end of this tunnel. I'm going to keep digging and digging and digging. And so if Kirk Cousins comes out on fire, when you look at those first 6 games, we met with the Vikings brass yesterday, and we got to hear from the top guys like Martin Nance, all the way down to, the sales team. And they were talking about this Tottenham Stadium and how they called the Vikings as they were building the stadium because they wanted to make it. It's not going to be like Wembley. It's not going to be a soccer style stadium. So it's going to have a football field. So now you get Kirk Cousins out there in a football style field overseas. Then you get Kirk Cousins against the Lions and the Bears. The Eagles, we'll see. I think it's going to be a offensive back and forth with that one. It's whose defense is going to be able to at least stop somebody. So, and then, again, you have the Packers. So that's going to be a shootout as well. So Kirk Cousins and then you have the Dolphins. So Kirk Cousins starting out could have an awesome 6 game. I mean, if he can get 3 or 4 300-yard games in there to start the season, hey, that light opens up a little bit bigger. And he goes from just M to MV because it's there. Most valuable. We don't know what yet, though. Is he the most valuable quarterback to the team? Is he the most valuable person in the locker room? Is he the most valuable father to his family? By week 17, we're going to know if that P has made his way, and he's either the MVP. Who knows? He might get MIP, most improved player. I mean, because if he all of a sudden kills it and has one of those like 40-2 seasons where it's 40 touchdowns with 2 interceptions, his QBR, because Sam says his QBR isn't great, his QBR goes up because he's making better decisions.
Oh, man. You went there.
If he's making better decisions, his QBR goes up. His passer rating's at 110. Hey, he could be MIP as well. So, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is a dark horse MVP. I think he could do it. Like, it's there. But that first 6 is going to be the key. I always break it down. There's going to be a 6-game season when it comes to this team. So I'm going to look forward to every pocket of 6, of what that's going to look like every 6 weeks. 17 games, 18 weeks. What does each 6 weeks look like for the Vikings?
Yeah, and I'm not going to completely disagree with you here, because look at some of these quarterbacks that have made Super Bowls before. I like to think of them as once-in-a-blue-moon quarterbacks, like Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Joe Flacco, Cam Newton. They put it all together one year where all the stars aligned. And I think that if you play out Kirk Cousins over 10 different seasons, and this is his 8th year as a starter, it's going to happen at some point if you give him enough time, enough chances to have that type of year. It's not impossible. And if he wouldn't have to improve drastically. I think that Kirk Cousins shows his best self in about, half of the games typically. Then he's kind of got medium Kirk, and he's got bad Kirk. If he can have good Kirk, 12, 13, 14 games in the season, we might be looking at a 40 touchdown kind of guy. And then I think the conversation is real. I think a lot has to fall in line. The coach has to be really good. Players have to stay healthy. Offensive line has to protect. Like, a lot has to happen. But that, again, is why he's a once-in-a-blue-moon quarterback when everything comes together.
Well, Kevin O'Connell's got to get it done. Kirk Cousins is going to get it done. That'll do it for us. We got it done today. I'm Ron Johnson, the host of the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. That's Sam Ekstrom, my producer. Great job today, Sam. I want to thank everybody for downloading and listening to this podcast. Make sure you subscribe, though. Go to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your iHeartMedia, wherever you get your podcast. Please go subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota so you get the daily uploads. Have a great day.